Hey guys, what's up? This is Startups episode 4. I'm joined by my co-host Dan, and we have special guest Louis Rossmann today. How are you doing
How's
today,
it
man?
going? I'm doing well.
We have this is actually pretty exciting. This is going to be like the first time we've had like I think like a really big like computer tech guy that's been kind of like all over Reddit. I'm sure you're aware a lot of your videos get posted on a lot of the subreddits there and everything. So, yeah, do you want to like introduce yourself for people in chat that don't know exactly who you are?
Yeah, my name is Louis Rossmann. I have a general electronics repair shop in New York City. It started off when I realized that the recording and studio business was not going to be a great way to make money going forward. And I noticed that a lot of people had Apple products that they were using for music as, consoles and tape machines and all of that stopped being used. So I started working servicing those products. I eventually went down the rabbit hole of just from doing normal basic repairs to doing component level repairs that most other places didn't want to do, using the knowledge that I had learned from the recording studio technicians that I had worked with. And then as time went on, I went down the rest of the rabbit hole, which is the extent to which the companies do not want you to work on your own stuff. I decided that I was going to start posting videos of what I was doing. I thought that I would have a max of 50 to 300 viewers worldwide because of the niche nature of the content and my boring presentation. And now there's about 820,000 people watching, and it's definitely went far further than I thought it would.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Do you want to I guess do you want to kind of get into how you went from so did you own a recording studio or did you just work in one as an employee or how did that work, I guess?
I wanted to be a recording engineer, so I wound up knocking on the doors of almost every studio in New York City, or showing up or calling. And I wound up getting hired at Progressive Music, which was kind of a dump. And then I got hired as an intern at Avatar Studios, which, at least before they got bought by Berkeley, was one of the best recording studios in the world. They had, that's where Bruce Springsteen did all his recordings, Liza Minnelli, and it was the last place I left in New York City that could actually fit an orchestra into one room. So I got started there as an intern, and that was about 2007.
Do you have like a music background? Do you play anything or do you just like audio engineering or
No, I just like music. I don't have much of an audio background. I mean, a music background. I can't
Mhm.
play music at all. So that's why I eventually was pushed away from the recording engineer, production assistant role into the role of technician, because I was good at that. I was awful at music. Just because even if you're a recording engineer, even if you're not actually making the music, if they say,
Mhm.
go to the bridge, you have to actually know what the bridge is. And I was just so not knowledgeable about music that I was useless as a recording engineer.
Of all that's okay, I'm sorry, this is just really interesting to me. Of all like the tech related jobs you could get, what I guess between doing anything related to programming or any other number of I don't know how many other like physical hardware jobs there would be, what drew you to trying to do like recording? I'm curious, just without having the music background.
I really enjoyed listening to music, and I wanted to know, why does it that this album sounds like this
Hmm.
and that album sounds like that, or especially from one group. I would wonder, why does this album sound really amazing and this one sound like garbage? Because before I knew any better, I just thought that the band got in a room, one microphone was put up, and then that was just published, because I was an ignorant teenager. And then when I realized that there's actually an art form and a science as to why it is one album is going to sound different from another, and that there are people that have input in this process, I thought that was very interesting. I wanted to be a part of that process, and I was interested in it just because I didn't like listening to albums from groups that I liked that sounded like trash. So I thought, I want to learn this, and I want to become good at it, and I want to be able to do better.
Okay, cool. Did you go to school for anything related to this?
I had a very brief stint at one of those scam audio schools called IAR, but I wound up dropping out before finishing. And one of the things that was interesting is that one of my teachers there was actually a technician at Avatar Studios about 11 years before I worked there,
Hmm.
and they knew him by name. He had messed up so much stuff that they actually still knew him by name 11 years later, and they decided they were going to reteach me everything that I learned once they realized I had taken an electronics course with that guy.
Gotcha. Jeez.
so what was the process of the switch from that to moving towards electronics repair? Because that seems like a very technically oriented, difficult to learn skill set to just kind of make that.
Well, I was much better at with a soldering iron and reading schematics and things like that than I was at dealing with clients. I was socially awkward. That's one part you need to be a recording engineer. I also didn't know a lot about music. That's another thing you needed. So I was kind of goaded in that direction. The other thing that pushed me in that direction at Avatar Studios, one of the pinnacle points for me, was that a lot of the people, this is probably offensive, but I don't know how else to phrase it. A lot of the people who were the production assistants and the recording engineer assistants, assistant engineers, they were very much so hipsters. That they wore the, they it was kind of that aura of, well, you wouldn't know this book because it's not mainstream if you ask somebody what the name of a book was, rather than just telling you what the name of the book was so that you can look it up for yourself. That kind of thing. It was that hipsterish culture, the very kind of elitist hipsterish culture. And I didn't get along with them. And I tried to, but I was different. I didn't dress the same. I didn't talk the same. I wasn't, I wasn't a part of it. So I got made fun of quite a bit. And then there were the technicians that worked there. They were kind of the old school plumber types. They were all about 20 years older. They kind of spoke like you would imagine an old school New York plumber would talk. And I got along with them very well. And they were not that stereotype. So I got along with them. And one day I was cleaning one of the toilets in the room, and the guy said, you've been in there forever. Can I use the bathroom? And I said, well, just give me 1 second. I'm almost done cleaning. And the guy says, you're cleaning the toilet? And I said, yeah, that's my job. And he said, nobody else here does that. And then I shook his hand, and I told him I was really interested in what he was doing with this one. I think it was a Neve 2254 compressor or something like that. And I told him I thought it was really cool that he was able to troubleshoot and figure something out with it. And he said, yeah, man, you can come by and check out what we're doing. So that was really interesting to me, because on one hand, I had a group of people who kind of ignored me, weren't exactly very fond of the fact that I was working there, and that I didn't know how to relate to at all. Because every time I would try to relate to them, there'd be this kind of elitism of, we're hipsters, we understand aspects of culture that you don't, we wear ironic shoes and all that. And then I had this other group of people that actually admired the fact that I was doing my job, that liked me, that appreciate, and that were saying, here, you can come into the room and check out what we're doing. So that shifted me away from the recording side, or my pursuit of becoming an assistant engineer or production assistant engineer, and then recording engineer, over to being a technician. And that was in fall of 2007.
Interesting. That happens over the course of how many years?
So I got my internship in progressive music in May of 2007. I got my internship at Avatar Studios around September 2007.
Wait.
And
I'm sorry, we're kind of falling. It's like lagging like just a little bit.
Sorry about that.
Hold on, just waiting a second for it to settle down. Okay, try again. Okay, sorry. Could you?
16.
Oh man.
Yeah, so I started at progressive music around May of 2007. I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about common sense and business and everything, but the studio was, for lack of a better way to say it, a shithole. And then I wanted to get experience at a place that I thought was going somewhere where I could learn more. That's when I started at Avatar. So I started there in September 2007.
Okay.
And I hoped to become and about a month in is when technicians, I think it was Phil. Yeah, Phil, he used to work at Polk Audio. He noticed that I actually cared and said, "Yeah, come and check out anytime you want." And that's around 1 or 2 months.
I'm sorry. Oh my God. It's like, hold on, just wait. Let's just wait like 10 seconds. I don't know if on the bottom left of your Discord thing, is there like a green or red indicator? Does it say if it's like where it says like connected?
It says video connected, 17 milliseconds and 1 bar.
Or like, oh, it's 1 bar. Okay. Hold on. We just have to wait a second. There's no way to like switch servers for the call, is there, Dan?
We could redo the call, but
no. I think just like every now and then, like your voice, you like turn into like Mr. Roboto. I don't know why.
His video is completely frozen for me right now. Also,
why? Wait,
why
are you still here,
happening?
Lewis?
I'm still here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wait. Okay, I'm gonna try switching the servers in the top right. We're on US East. I'll try switching to Central. Hold on 1 sec.
Oh.
Okay. Does this work? Hello?
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Oh my God. Thank God. Okay.
It actually works. Amazing.
Yes. Yeah, now I have green. I see green.
Okay.
Amazing.
Oh my God. Okay. I thought this was going to be a nightmare. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, so and then I started at Avatar in September 2017. Around October 2017, it's 2007, not 17. 2007 is where the tech people started to notice me and treat me differently, and that's when I started getting way more interested in working in that area. And then one of the managers said, "Would you rather work towards the path of becoming a technician rather than the path of being an assistant engineer or production assistant?" And since the techs were the people that I got along with, and the assistant engineers and were, just for the apps, everything that you can imagine the negative stereotype of a Williamsburg hipster being, I jumped at the opportunity to work in the tech room.
Gotcha. How long did you work in the tech room after before you moved on to kind of like starting your own shop, or is this pretty far
About
removed?
this is about 4 or 5 months. I wound up quitting in March or April of 2008. It was funny because I gave 2 weeks notice. One of the things I noticed is that anybody who was under the age of 26 or 27 would get called one of the kids. And I was 18, so I figured I could stay here for 7 years and still be getting called a kid. And there were some people there that were, 20 to 30 years older than me. And while it was a great opportunity, I learned a lot. There was a lot to learn there and a lot of great people to work around. It seemed to be something where I could work there for 20 years and go nowhere. So I learned, I think, 80% of what there was to learn. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and I said, why? Because I imagine nobody has ever quit a place that was so prestigious without being offered a lottery or something. And I said, I really appreciate the opportunity. It's just I think I've learned about 90% of what I'm going to learn. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of future for me here, a lot of places for me to go, and I really appreciate it. I just wanted to move on. And he said, okay, or thank you very much. And then I left, and then I got a call the next day saying, yeah, you actually don't have to come back. You're fired. They were because they were that offended that somebody actually quit and didn't want to work for $7.50 an hour for the rest of their life.
Nice.
Because one of the people that was there.
That's a really poor business decision in that part, because then you can actually claim unemployment insurance as a result of.
Yeah, I could have. Because the thing is, again, one of the people who was working there with me was 12 years older than me. He had a master's degree, and he was making about $12 to $14 an hour. So I looked at it, the way I looked at it is I thought I could be here for 12 more years, and I will go from 7 to 12. And it wasn't even just about the money. It was just about the idea that for the next, if you have a company culture where you call everybody below a certain age the kids, and I understand why that is, the experience gap between the old school engineers and the production assistants, but I don't want to be 25. I don't want to be here 7 years later and getting called one of the kids. So I left, and I went back to work at the other small studio, Progressive Music, to try to make it better. The financial crash occurred at the end of 2008, so that place wound up closing, and I found myself entirely without work. I had bought a MacBook because I wanted to finish up a session that I was doing for somebody that I was using Logic for. It showed up broken. I fixed it. I wound up not needing the machine anymore, and I sold it, and I made about $200 or $300 of profit. And that was where I thought to myself, okay, I can't go back to Avatar because they're very salty that I quit.
Yeah.
I can't go back to this other place because they're out of business. Well, crap. But I just made $200 to $300 for about 20 minutes of work. Let's try that again. And then it's a job that occurred by accident.
Did the Geek Squad exist back then? I'm trying to remember for Best Buy.
Geek Squad did. I actually had applied for a job at Best Buy, not even as Geek Squad. This was about 2006 or 7. I just applied for a job as a regular clerk when they were hiring like the low level people, and I didn't even get that.
I was really close to like getting into like computer repairs. Like as part of my early streaming career, I built computers for people, and then I charged like a commission on everything. And I remember looking at the prices for the Geek Squad stuff, and it was like I think to install and service a hard drive, they would charge like $80 or $100 for something that was literally like 5 to 10 minutes of work tops, like for just like sliding a hard drive into a computer. I always thought that was like really crazy, the charges that they would do early on.
Well, it was a business based around that. I was a Geek Squad guy back in 2002, or 2003, and it's the bottom of the line. The people they were hiring to do that were just using pre-made tools. They didn't really. I don't think they did any of the type of repairs he's doing. If shit didn't work, bad capacitor, we'd just say go buy a new motherboard or something.
Yeah, when it comes to the basics, things like drive installs, I always try to preface it by saying this is something you can do yourself. Here is how you can do it. But the reality is, if I'm going to stop, working on something that is really important to put a drive in, install the operating system, then answer all the post questions, then usually we will bill something where we make about $100 of profit for it, just because there's usually a lot of post sale support. So there's, where is this application? How do I set up my email? How do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah, I was more just talking from like I was talking from like you can charge this much, but I understand that like even installing a hard drive can be a daunting task for a lot of people.
Yeah, but the thing is, what would bother me is that they wouldn't just be honest and say, here's how you can do it, here's where you can buy it, here's how you can do it yourself. I definitely don't try to upsell people on it. Like, do you want me to do this other thing for you? It's only once somebody says, if somebody says, yeah, I can do this, I was like, okay, cool. And when I say, here's how you install the operating system, and their eyes glaze over as I say operating system, then I'll take the business.
Yeah.
But if it's somebody who's somewhat savvy, I'll just say, here's an Amazon link, here's where to buy it, here's the screwdriver you need, go.
Sure.
Now, the difference is on the newest machines that Apple's making, where they glue the screen into the computer. I'm not sure if you've seen the new iMacs, where the screen is about $600. It's held in by adhesive, and it's very easy to break as you're removing it. That type of stuff is just, I see that as a middle finger to the customer. But
so or go ahead.
I was going to ask, so the skill set for doing this type of stuff, it's not just knowing how to use a soldering iron. I know how to use a soldering iron, but as far as being able to determine, like, hey, the reason that this LCD is not turning on is because you can see right here as you trace this down and you go to here, obviously the voltage on this capacitor, like that seems crazy to me. I've seen your videos to get that level of knowledge to be able to do that replacement without, I would say, basically having to go to a school specifically to learn that level of stuff. How did you pick that up and also be able to take the jump to say, I'm going to do this full time?
Well, the first thing was the knowledge that I got from working at Avatar under the Ricky Begans, the Roy Hendricksons, and the Phillips Combs. Having that internship where I could work under people who were best in class as technicians, that definitely jumped me forward several years, because I didn't have to go to college for electrical engineering and all of that. I got to learn all the the finer aspects of troubleshooting without having to go through.
Were doing that at that job. You were actually doing low-level soldering? Okay.
Yeah, like with 1960s and 70s equipment. Don't get, it's totally different working on a Neve 8088 from 1976 and a MacBook, but a lot of the same general concepts of troubleshooting, of how to isolate an issue, how to isolate which circuit is responsible for it, a lot of those things came from it. The other thing is, when it comes to liquid damage repair, a lot of it is, what I try to get across in the channel is that this stuff is easier than it's made out to be. I don't want you to think that you need to know what a coulomb and farads and all that stuff is to just basically get started. If any message could get delivered from my channel, it's the message that you can get started on it without having to know all of these things, with just some basic common sense and detective work. So when I start, it's a lot of it is clean up in aisle 7 because there's corrosion on this thing, rather than the farad measurement of this specific capacitor is off by 5%, and I found this using my Mensa IQ. So for example, if it's liquid damage and I see that there is liquid on this specific section, I have liquid on this section and I have this problem. So now I make a pattern recognition association in my head. This circuit probably has something to do with this thing. So then I'll just ask myself, okay, what is this? And then I'll look at it and go, I have no idea what that is. So I'll make a list. Okay, figure out what this specific type of drawing, what is this circuit even called, before I even understand it. Then I would decide, okay, what are the individual components in this circuit called? What is this thing supposed to do? And then I'll kind of go from there. And then I would also compare a working one to a dead one before I really knew what every single signal was for, so that I could try and figure out where the problem was. I definitely didn't start out with this great understanding of electronics engineering. It was really just, oh, there's corrosion here, clean up in aisle 5. And then I would make a list for myself every time I said why I couldn't do something, of why it was. So, I would fix this, but I don't know what this circuit is. Okay, so I would make a list of, what is this thing called? Print screen it, post it on Stack Overflow, ask a friend, whatever it is, try to get an answer to it. And then I would say, okay, I would fix this. I know what this circuit is called if only I knew how I was supposed to operate it. Now, okay, so now my excuse for not being able to do it was I don't know how the specific circuit is supposed to operate. So let me find a known good one, make measurements of it, and then contrast and compare it to this one so that I could see how it works. So I'd buy a board, or I'd find one that a customer had left that they had recycled, and then I'd make all my measurements and compare this one to that one. And then from that, and I would kind of fill in the gaps to try to learn everything, rather than just going the college way of, let me learn every single piece of the building block from scratch. I would kind of I knew nothing, and I was just filling in the spots that I needed to know as I went.
So take me through the process. You've left your job.
Oh, wait. Can I ask you something real specific to that? I'm just really curious.
Go for it.
So in some of your videos, I'm almost positive I've watched you hold up like a schematic of certain like Apple boards and whatnot. Is that stuff like easy to acquire, or is that like hardcore proprietary, or why didn't you start with like actual like schematics instead of trying to like figure out everything by yourself?
Well, a lot of what I was figuring out by myself was with the schematic. It was just I didn't know what a buck converter was. After I had spent 6 to 10 months working on Pultecs from 1951 or LA2As or Neve 8088s, there's no such thing as a switching power supply in any of these things. It's just they're 60 years old. So I just didn't know what this stuff was, and I hadn't gone to college. I was 20, 21 years old. I is clueless. So even if I had the schematic in front of me, I'd say, okay, that's a transistor, that's a chip. What the hell does this do? So I at some point I needed to even know, what is a buck converter? What is a DC to DC boost circuit? What does this thing do? But now, when it comes to schematics, that's a separate question, and getting them was difficult. Around 2014 was when I realized I had this mind-blowing experience that most engineers are just going to laugh at how ignorant and stupid I was, which was that I didn't even know that there was a such thing as a board view, because there was a schematic that showed these are the names of all the components, this is how they're interconnected, these are their values, but I would look at the motherboard, which was unlabeled, and not know which one was which. And I had thought at that time, okay, the people who know which one are which, those are the Mensa people. Those are the 160 plus IQ electrical engineers that are doing this. I'm just an idiot. And then I found out that there's this website where they had the board view. So they would say, okay, this is resistor 10 on the schematic. Here's where it's sitting on the board. And I went, hallelujah, finally, I figured it out. And it was, but I actually celebrated that moment, as stupid as it was, that I didn't even know that board views existed for this stuff. But schematics and board views are very difficult to come by. Usually somebody in China or somewhere winds up leaking it, and then it winds up on some Romanian or Russian FTP server, and then it eventually leaks down to people like us that want to buy them for $5 a piece. But yeah, it's a lot of it is Apple would not want us to have access to that. Mm-hmm. If a site is hosting them, Apple would ask them to take it down. They very much so are of the belief that that stuff should not be shared, and it's their property, it's their intellectual property. How dare you share it?
And then just for the audience, I'm guessing the difference between board view and schematic is like schematic is actually like laying out how everything is actually connected, but the board view shows you where on the actual board that particular signal.
Yeah, so like a schematic would say that that this resistor is attached to this capacitor and then this resistor. So, and this is the value of each. Whereas the board view tells you this is which resistor on this board is that actual one. Because if you open your phone or your MacBook or any sort of laptop, you'll just see there's thousands of components on the board, but none of them are labeled. So how do you know which one is which? And in the beginning, I was so ignorant that I thought that the way that you told which one was which was you were just born a genius and you knew.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't know any better.
Okay.
And once I got the board views, that was when I really started accelerating my path to being good at it, because I had the information.
So take us through. You just left your job, and now the decision is essentially you're going to open up a store doing computer repair. How does that process happen? That's a pretty big jump. Signing a lease, buying the equipment you need, all that type of jazz. So
yeah, that's not even something that was in my head at the time. So I lost my job, and I bought this machine. I wound up reselling it on Craigslist to another studio owner. I think it's Pete Mignolia. Mispronouncing his name. Sorry, Pete. He owns a studio called Metrosonic in Brooklyn. That was my first sale. And I just thought, okay, let me try this again. So I'm going to buy a machine again, like I did. That's advertised as broken. I'm going to make it work, and then hopefully sell it for more than that on Craigslist or eBay or something. So I figured I'm not even fit to offer a repair service. There are other repair shops that do that. Nobody knows who I am. I have no credibility. Nobody's going to want to pay, a kid in Staten Island wearing basketball shorts from job to job that doesn't have any experience or license to want to do this. So I'm just going to buy it, and then I'm going to sell it. And I did that for about 2 or 3 months up until March of 2009. And that's when I realized that buying and reselling was not good for me, because there was risk involved, and I did not have the capital to buy something, and then if it didn't work, just eat the cost of it.
Yeah. So
I decided to try. Now, I did have feedback on eBay from having purchased a few and sold a few, so I would use that as my credibility. So I decided to put together this pathetic-looking little website and pathetic-looking little back page Craigslist and a Kijiji and OLX ad that said, this is the one service I do, this is my price, I took a print screen of my eBay feedback and I put it there, and I tried to figure out what the pain point of the customers was. There's this one book by Jim Camp called Start With No that says, don't advertise according to why you think you're good, advertise according to the customer pain point. So when I had spoken to people,
real quick, there were a few. Is this like the big thing that a customer has issue with that they would pay somebody to solve? Is that what you mean by pain point?
Pain point just being the parts of the experience that suck when you're trying to get the service done. So, for example, there was one place that advertised they will do this for $149. Mm-hmm. You show up, and when you show up, they say, oh, it's $149 for the part. You have to pay me an additional $100 to put it in. So one of the pain points is that you don't want to deal with somebody who's lying.
Sure.
One of the other pain points is that same place would then say it will take a week for us to order it. So one of the pain points is waiting. So my little ad said, here's my feedback, because I know you're concerned about credibility. But the price that's listed here is the total price you will pay to leave with a working device. It does not change. And I will show up and I will get this done within 20 minutes. This was for the basic stuff like screens or keyboards. I will do the job in 20 minutes. I have the part with me, and you will not have to wait or leave your machine. So I made my little website that advertised according to the pain points of the customers based on the competition, and I started getting business that way. And I think I was making $40 or $50 of profit per job at the time, and I wound up moving out. And then I just offered this as a house call business. So I didn't have money for a store. I had money for rent. I think I had about $268 left. So I bought 2 or 3 parts. I would buy them as I needed them. I would schedule house calls with customers. I'd show up at their place, at their business, their home, and work there. And I didn't even get started thinking about the idea of having a location to work out of until late 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Around then, there was another studio that one of my friends was working at, and all of the gear there was always broken because the person who owned the studio spent all of his money on cocaine. So this was on West 30th Street in what used to be one of the music building that's now the tech startup condo, whatever building.
And at this point, you've been doing this for the repair thing for about 2 years then at this point, kind of on your own?
Yeah, the independent thing I've been doing for about a year. So I started doing it in the end of 2008, started doing it for clients around March 2009. Okay. And this is around September or December 2009. I made a deal with the guy where I said, I will make sure that everything here works all the time. You don't have to spend any money. I was taking tubes out of the guitar amps and throwing it at a little piece of padding on the wall, having it fall so the carbon would go away. Instead of buying a new tweeter, I would cut up the coil and then retie it together. I made sure that everything would work so clients wouldn't complain and he wouldn't have to charge money and he wouldn't have to spend money on maintenance. In exchange, I wanted to be able to use the space for my own customers because I was getting to the point where 3 or 4 people would want a house call all within the same 1 hour time window. And I'm traveling around New York City on the train. I couldn't make that work. Mm-hmm. So we made that agreement, and that worked for about 2 or 3 years until I got thrown out of the space after I made a reference to the fact that his new partner was making their money selling cocaine, not off of a studio business, while I was on the phone with him. I thought I had hung up. I was actually cleaning my bathtub, and it pocket dialed him back, and they heard that, and I got kicked out immediately. So it was at that point, I had been 2 or 3 years in, and my business was on steady ground.
I can't gloss over that. Were you ever worried when you worked here that somebody would show up to either raid you guys or some gangsters would show up to fuck with your shop, or what? Was this ever a concern? Or was it not like really. That?
No, it wasn't a concern because every recording studio would have some number scribbled in the tech shop wall upside down or something that call this number and weed or something will show up. And the other thing is that it was like the company that decided to buy this recording studio. It wasn't like that was their primary business. I would just see people show up that just happened to have lots of drugs on them. Okay. And one of the people who worked for that new company was saying, this is how you should run a studio. You're doing it wrong. And I remember saying, okay. I got off the phone. I was complaining to a woman I was dating at the time saying, I don't understand this. You guys, by all means, you make your money off of whatever the hell drugs you're selling. Why don't you just let us do what we do well? And they heard that, gotcha. And because the pocket dial, because the phone was wet, and yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's a rough way to go, man, at that time. Jeez.
Yeah, so the thing is, now, at the time, I had also had a partnership with a second company that was supposed to sell LCD screens, Rossmann Supply Group, that I was working with out of there. So I had a little bit more money in my pocket than I otherwise would have had, and my repair business was on the kind of steady ground now, where at least I had $2,000 to $4,000 in the bank at any given time, rather than minus $1,000 to $200. So I managed to get a space next door that was about $3,300 a month from John Grossbard at Planet to Planet Studios. And I was sharing that with 2 other people who were kicked out of the same studio. So we were sharing the rent. And I was doing that for about 6 to 8 months in 2011. And that was a big jump for me because I had, I collected rent from 2 people. We shared the space. So I had maybe $1,000 or $2,000 in my bank account, and I paid $1,000 or $2,000 of rent. That was a kick in the ass for me I'm either going to be a house call business forever and go back to where I was 2 years ago, or I have to find a way to do more. So I no longer advertise by appointment only. You could show up at any time of day. I showed up at 8 in the morning. I left at 11 o'clock at night. I offered services that I didn't offer before, and it worked, except, sharing a recording studio with an electronics repair shop in a basement that smells like weed, it just wasn't very compatible. So as time went on, we all went our separate ways. And that was when I found the store that I lease now. That place was $3,500 a month in the beginning. He only wanted a 2 or 3 month deposit. and it was a complete and utter shitbox, but it could be refurbished or renovated into something that looks decent. So that there was a 2 to 3 year gap. It wasn't just I'm just going to open a store after I lose my job. A store is expensive. You need a client base to have the income to be able to pay for the store before you open it. So there was a 2 to 3 year time period there of me going, just do it, advertising, doing house calls, and working 12 to 14 hours a day just so that I could have that little $1,000 to $3,000 buffer that would even allow me to move someplace.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
And
that's the East Village, correct, where your store is right now?
Yeah, right now it's in the East Village.
I mean, that's a pretty well, I mean, it's Manhattan, but I mean, that's pretty decent rent, I guess, at the time, even back then, no?
Oh, 3,500 was practically free. It's just I don't have pictures of the beginning of it, but in the beginning of it, it was kind of like one of those 1970s cars that's rusting away, where you look down and you can see the street. You could see it, I could see to the basement from my floor when I first got there. But I could either make that better and use that, or I could pay $12,000 to $20,000 a month for something else, which is just simply not an option. I was broke. That was not an option. So I had to make that work. And one of the ways that I was able to come up with the rent for that space was I actually sold a bunch of board repair services online at a discounted price. I think I lowered the board repair price to $129 to $159, and I said it will take 6 to 12 weeks to complete the board repair. It's being done at a discount. And I got a bunch of people to pay for the board repairs up front with the idea that it would take a little longer to get done. And I used that money to pay the security deposit and the rent on the space. But then I had to wind up doing the services. So I was kind of pre-selling my success, to pre-selling the idea that I would be successful in order to pay for the space. Because if I paid for the space using that money, but then the customers didn't continue coming through, or I didn't do the work, then I would not be able to pay rent and I'd be destitute and bankrupt back where I started. So the $3,500 of rent and the 2 to 3 month security deposit, that wasn't something I just had in my pocket. That was something, I had to find a way to
Ponzi
pay for
schemed
that.
yourself if your business wouldn't have worked out right.
Well, what I say is, I don't run a Ponzi scheme on the customers. I run a Ponzi scheme on my time. Because now I have to not only do all those repairs that people have already paid for, I also have to deal with all the incoming customers.
So that you don't run out of money.
In order to, so I had to deal with about 100 or 200 prepaid repairs that were at a ridiculous discount. And I also had to deal with all the incoming customers as well. With what I had one employee at the time. Mm-hmm. So I would get to work at 8 a.m. and I would leave at 1 or 2 a.m. And that was just the way it was for a very, very long time. And that was around 2012.
I'm kind of curious right now for your shop, if you can say, how many employees do you have, or do you have employees?
I have 11 or 12.
Do they do like the same type of like heavy lifting repair work you do, or are they more kind of like on busybody work schedules, or?
4 of them do the board repairs that I do. One of them is more basic. The other 3 do that. One of them does data recovery work on hard drives and SSDs, which is, I don't even know how to do that. He's smarter than I am. His name is Steve. He's the manager. Mm-hmm. And the rest will do either customer service or the reassembly and the basic repairs, the keyboard replacement, screen replacement. So there's a distinction between open-ended and repetitive. So like the repetitive stuff where you know how it's starting and ending every time is handled by one section of staff. And the open-ended, where you have no idea what the problem is, it's different every time, is handled by another section of staff.
Gotcha. Do you still do you spend the vast majority of your time still doing physical repair work, or do you manage the YouTube, or do you manage your business, or what is your time spent on?
It's definitely split a lot more than it used to be. So I used to spend a lot of time in the beginning doing the repetitive stuff, mm-hmm. like screen replacement, keyboard replacement, customer service. It wasn't even like I had employees. It was kind of like I was just a coworker of the people who were there, mm-hmm. because I couldn't afford to just be a manager and sit back in my recliner all day. Then as time went on, I stopped doing the repetitive ones. I got people to do that. And then I was the only one doing the board repairs and the open-ended ones. And then as time went on, I was doing less of just open-ended repairs, and I spent more time on coming up with stuff that I could create for YouTube. So I would prepare it. I'd find boards that I thought would be good examples for the channels, and I would work on those. I would focus on building the channel, building the online store, building the website. But I still do spend a lot of my time fixing things, dealing with customers. And the reason that there's this idea that as a business owner, you should not be doing any of the low-level practices at your business. You should, the ideal business is the one where you don't have to do anything. But the one thing that I like about being able to, about staying in the low-level jobs at times, is I get to see what it's like for the employee. So if there's a certain way to deal with customers where I think we would reduce friction or we would make people happier, I I can actually come up with the way to do that if I'm sitting next to the person who's doing customer service and I'm doing it with them. Or if there's something that a tool we could buy that would make board repair much more comfortable and better for everybody. If I'm actually doing the board repairs and I'm sitting with the people doing the board repairs, then I can say, I think it would be really easy if you had this type of stencil rather than this crap that you're using. So I value being able to actually be there with the people who are working, and not just sitting in my recliner doing SEO or whatever from home, because
Well,
I get to see.
I was going to say, I think that what you've done is amazing with the online presence at this point. Because even me being in Florida right now, if I had a computer that had a motherboard problem, and if it was like an expensive laptop, the only place I could think of, honestly, that I could send off something like this to be fixed is you guys. So I'm curious how much of your business is actually, I guess, people mailing in stuff, because it's either you or sending it to Apple or something along those lines. It's not an Apple product. Where do you even get a motherboard fixed?
It's about 60-40. So the last time I looked at QuickBooks, it was about 60-40 mail-in repair versus walk-in. So the walk-ins is about 60%. The mail-ins are about 40%. We do get a whole lot more mail-in than walk-in when it comes to like just the number of devices, but I'm just talking about invoiced, because a lot of the devices that we get mailed to us are, I watched your video, I thought I could do what you did, and whoops, and those are not often invoiceable. A lot of those are not invoiceable. But yeah, it's about 40% mail-in, 60% walk-in. And even before the YouTube channel became popular, I really was trying to push mail-in as much as I could. I don't like New York very much. I don't want to spend the rest of my life here. So I wanted to figure out how many what can I do while I have a business that's in New York so that I could build piggyback as many non-New York revenue streams onto it so that someday, if I would like, I can move to some place where the air is clean and people are happy and it's not $2,600 a month for an apartment the size of a shoebox.
Interesting. So your goal is eventually to move this out of New York then at this point, or to open another store, or what?
Yeah, at some point I'd like to be able to move out of New York entirely, just because I've lived my entire life here for 30 years. There are things that I like about New York, but anytime I visit another part of the US, it's just the people are nicer, the stores are nicer, the houses are nicer, things are cheaper, the weather is nicer, everything is just nicer when you leave New York City. So eventually I would want to move either the business or at the very least myself out of New York City.
When you say move out of the business, do you mean your current place, or do you want to get out of like this repair business completely?
No, I mean, like maybe I could open a store in another city or state, and then I could manage the walk-in business of that business somewhere else. Or if it's the mail-in gets to a point where it's way more than walk-in, then I could just manage the mail-in facility that's 1,000 miles away from here in a place where that actually looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I go ahead. Sorry.
No, go for it. Finish your thought.
I forgot what it was.
Okay. Are you happy with the size of your business, with the revenue you generate now and everything, or do you have like a goal to like make more money or expand?
Yes and no. I think I definitely would want to be able to service more customers. But I wouldn't want to do that in a way that's not sustainable. Like I don't want it to be like one of those I fix and repair or you break I fix franchises where they handle the very, very basic stuff, but a lot of the more difficult things that will get botched. I want the standard to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, if I were to expand, I would want the standards that I have for this facility of people using their brain and speaking to customers like human beings and not reading off of a script and not outsourcing things that are too difficult to do. I want to keep that standard. Oh, I would want to figure out how to keep that standard if I grew. And I don't know if that's necessarily possible, because the more you look at the businesses that everybody likes to make fun of for not being good at what they do, everybody likes to make fun of Geek Squad because they're not very knowledgeable and they screw things up. But they're also working on this ridiculously large scale of, stores all over the country. And the same is true for the Genius Bar. So if I were to do that, I would want to scale it in a manner where it's where I am allowed to keep the same standards, but it scales. And I almost don't think it's going to be something that's doable by just the traditional opening a franchise and something like that. I think it's something where people would be able to learn from the YouTube videos, start their own businesses in their own areas that are similar to this one, where they keep that same standard, and I make money some other way. Like, for example, Tim Herman has this business called TCRS Circuit. He started watching my videos at 16. He's 18. He has a store in California, and he actually got a board that I forget the name, was PowerBookmatic or something. Some company that's been in business for 19 years had not even put balls on the bottom of a CD3215 chip. He got it. He's 18 years. He's been alive less than they've been in business, and he fixed it. Now, I don't necessarily know how to monetize the fact that he has a store, nor do I even really want to take his money from a franchise fee kind of thing. But I would like to see more people watch this stuff, and for all of and more people being able to offer this type of service. I don't really know how it is I'd monetize that. I don't know, maybe I'd monetize it off of YouTube. Maybe I'd monetize it off of having a forum. Maybe I'd monetize it off of my store. But I'd rather focus on it existing and then how to monetize it later, rather than doing the franchise thing of, I'm going to focus on you pay the franchise fee right now, and then we figure out whether or not we're going to have a good business later. I don't know if that made any sense.
I'm gonna ask you some hard hitting questions. Okay, ready?
Go for it.
So I'm kind of curious. Do you feel like your time, or have you ever wondered if your time is being wasted, like doing like physical repair work now, considering, I guess, one, how popular you are on the internet, right? Like you've got a really big YouTube channel that potentially has a lot of outreach, or the fact that you're a business owner. Do you ever worry that maybe you spend too much time working, like doing actual like low
Absolutely. Yeah, I've in all the business books would entirely agree that I do kind of somewhat waste my time at it. So sometimes I'm doing it because it is ridiculously difficult to find people who are good at this specific field. The thing is, anybody who's this is the curve I found. The people who are smart enough to do this are typically smart enough to make $250,000 as an engineer or some sort of high level position at another company doing a higher level job. And the people who are willing to accept the amount that I can pay, the 26 to the 40, somewhere between the 26 to $40 an hour or so to do board repair, they are typically not, they don't have the mindset or the skill set to do it properly. So it's very difficult to find somebody who's in that little sweet spot of, you will work for the salary that this business can support, and you have the knowledge required or the ability required to do it. And typically, so you have to find somebody who probably it could, if they put the effort in, could work at the Texas Instruments or some other company, but decides, screw that, I enjoy working at a small business. I like what I do. I like the freedom that I get. I like being able to play whatever music I want during the day. And I like being able to, be the master of my desk kind of thing. So it's hard to find that person. So that's why I still do a lot of the work. That's decreasing with the YouTube channel, because the thing that I'm realizing is, if I show hundreds of thousands of people how to do it, at some point, hopefully one of you is looking for a job and I can hire you. But yeah, so I definitely spend way too much time doing low-level work. And part of that may also just be that I'm not a great manager. I'm not good at coming up with a book that says, here's how to do your job. Every single question can be answered in this book. I'm not very good at that. That is a weak point of mine. I would rather hire somebody that thinks like me, or that has the same, so where I can give them the general guiding principles and they know what to do. That is difficult to find. And admit it, that may also just be, I like to say I do that because I want to keep standards high, but that could just be an excuse because I'm a really bad manager. I don't know how to write a franchise book of rules so that I can give that to anybody and they would know what to do, which is why I spend a lot of time at the office training customer service people or training people who are doing the board repairs. I just kind of dump all the information on YouTube. I've done kind of like a brain dump of, here's everything I know. Now you figure it out. Yeah. If I were a proper business owner, what I would have done is I would have written a very detailed flow chart and manual that says, if this, then that, if this, then that. And I've never done that. Maybe it's because I'm lazy and bad at being a business owner and a manager, because I don't consider myself much of a businessman. Or maybe it's because I just enjoy the work that I do too much, and I would rather be sitting at a board trying to figure out what's wrong with it, or I'd rather be streaming it, or I'd rather be dealing with a customer that is irate at the Genius Bar and making them happy than sitting there coming up with some flow chart for employees.
What has been your what's the thing that's slowing you down at this point? Like, is it you are not attracting enough customers, or what? Because it seems like, as I said before, I don't think I'm alone in the fact that if Steven had a broken computer and he had to get it fixed, buying a new one wasn't an option, or it was way too expensive, I don't know who we would even think of sending it to if it not someone like you. Like, I don't know of anyone who's going to do like this level of detailed repair. So what is the actual thing that's hindering your growth of the business right now? Is it customers, the second location? What?
Well, a big part of it is the space that I'm in. It's about 750 square feet. There's 12 people in that. That's even by New York standards, that is overcrowded. And if I want to find, and again, as I said in a previous video, I asked about renting the space next door. It used to be a candy shop. They went out of business. They
What
were
was the name
paying
of the
about the
candy
same.
shop, by the way?
Handsome Dance. It was Handsome Dance. They had
Ah,
pretty good candy. At
yeah.
least my employees say. I tried to not eat it. But so they had a candy shop, and it went out of business, at least in that location. And I asked the new owners of the building, I'm open to renting this. I'm open to renovating it so it looks beautiful, and I'm open to paying more than they were. And they got back. They never responded to me. They got back to me with saying, as a courtesy for the fact that you've been here so long and the building went on fire and you didn't have heat for several weeks and we didn't really give you heaters for a few weeks when it was 7 degrees outside. As a courtesy, here's a $27,000 space that's like 10% bigger than what you have now. You interested? You interested? And I I politely told them to go fuck themselves. And most of the spaces that you find in New York City that are rentable are, the $20,000 stores, $27,000 stores, or there's stores that are my size but they want $12,000 for it. Or if you want a store that has space, it's $27,000 to $40,000. And I don't have that. I make
numbers. Are you saying this monthly numbers, or what is this?
Oh, that's monthly. That's monthly. Yeah, that's $27,000 per month. And I don't have that money. I didn't have good credit early on in life. I have good credit now, but I am still not a person who can walk into a Chase Bank or a company and just say, "Here's my papers. I would like a business loan," and get one.
Loans, yeah.
I went to Chase. Yeah, I went to Chase, and they said something like, "Well, we noticed at the end of the year you pay yourself a dividend of the profit." And they said, "Why do you do that?" And I said, "Because I like to eat and live indoors, and so I pay myself a salary." And they said, "Okay, but we want to see that there's more and more business profit over time." And I said, "Well, I could just pay myself less, and there'd be that." And we had to talk back and forth, and it ended in I would qualify for a loan that's less than 10% of what's in my account. I can't just go and rent a $27,000 or $40,000 store. So there has to be some sort of intermediate step. Now,
Well, hypothetically, if you did, let's say tomorrow, you did have that $40,000 store, how does that affect your bottom line? Not even counting the rent. Do you have more money coming in as a result of that? Is that the thing?
Yeah, there are services that I'd like to offer that I can. So if there are certain things where I say no because the machine to do it is in the basement, I don't have physical room for a technician to do this. There are ideas that I would like to explore, and those. So, for example, why don't we do RAM upgrades? Well, why I have to find the RAM, I have to find a vendor for it, I have to see if it's doable, I have to have a space for somebody to sit there and do it all day. And I would rather use that space for something that is more profitable. I have to make the maximum use of the space in terms of profitability. Mm-hmm. There are things that are slightly less profitable that I would do if I had the space to actually fit a person there and do it, but I don't have that space. And now I could move to a place that's outside of New York, but still most of the business revenue is walk-ins. So I have to kind of be careful as to how I trot this out. So I've been looking for a second space that I could rent, but there was one actually very nearby that wound up not getting back to us after they said we were a good candidate. It was about $6,700 for about 1,000 square feet, which was pretty good. But for the most part, a lot of businesses in New York, a lot of building owners in New York City just don't rent out. It's easier for them to keep the space empty from a tax perspective. It's to keep it empty, then sell the building 10 to 20 years down the line for the increased value than it is for them to pay property tax the entire way and deal with tenants. So you'll notice that if you go, let's say you go on East 8th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue, that there's over 21 vacant storefronts right now. And many of them have been vacant for the past 5 years since I started looking for my store. So if I want to do more, I need to have the space to do more, which I don't. I'm not taking on loans or investment to do what I do. I'm funding every single thing that I do through my own money. So if I hire a new person and that person is, $3,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever a month, then that person has to make their salary by the end of the month, or else I'm screwed. So I'm forced to make these very incremental increases in what I'm doing, just because I'm not independently wealthy, and I don't really qualify for a loan. My business model is not one that a bank is going to be excited about. So what do you do? Well, I fix stuff. I'm not a franchise, and I show all of my competitors how to do exactly what I do. Give me money. That doesn't excite venture capitalists or bank managers.
I'm really curious. So, unless I misheard you earlier, you said that it's like 40-60 between online stuff and walk-ins?
Yeah.
I guess like I don't know like your specific numbers, but because it sounds like what I've heard so far, it's like a no-brainer. It feels like you should like just move out of New York, find like an equal place like in some other really cheap area, and then just really push the online stuff. I don't know if
I was
have you.
even going to suggest keep the store for the walk-in stuff, but
Mhm,
do all the actual repairs at a place where it's cheaper to have all those machines. Like get
mhm.
a bad example, but have a warehouse somewhere and have that, just as a
In
store.
like Connecticut or something, or I don't know, some place. I don't know like what would be cheaper to like house stuff. Yeah, but like just because it seems like the real estate in New York is so absurdly expensive, and the stuff you're doing doesn't have to be done like in New York. It's not like a music recording studio where people maybe want to be in that area for like the repairs. It seems like that could take place anywhere. But have you? Are
Yeah.
you? Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
That's definitely possible. And sometimes I would also have to make sure that that 40% number stays,
Mm-hmm.
because I would be worried that, let's say I open a mail-in space and then there's no business there. Or I also don't want to get into the situation where the main walk-in facility has to outsource stuff to another facility. I like being able to give somebody a quick answer. Or,
Mm-hmm.
let's say somebody comes to pick up a repair and somebody, God forbid, missed that there's a bent pin on the keyboard connector and that needs to be. I don't want to I want to be able to tell somebody, oops, my mistake. Here, have a candy, have a seat. Oh, this will be done in 5 minutes. Versus, oh yeah, this is not the facility that does the soldering. Let's mail it off to that place. So
Sure, but I
I
think
would
that's
have to
pretty
structure
big.
how I want to do it.
That's a huge compromise for that edge case scenario to come up for you not to potentially be able to expand. Like I understand that might come up, but that's, keeping yourself from expanding for that one edge case seems like it's not worth it. I'd rather have that customer be upset that you missed out and shit's going to happen, but also have 95% of your business be way better as a result of changing, no?
It's possible. I would want to be open to the first thing there is if I were to move everything off site to some other sort of location, I kind of have to duplicate the people that I have here. And it took a ridiculous amount of time to find the people that I have now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, and I would want to be in a place where I know that there's more where I could, if I put up a job ad, people show up that are actually good at it. And I think that I would have to improve the YouTube channel a little bit more in order to get to that point. Because in the beginning, if I put up a job ad saying, here is the salary, here's what I need somebody to do, nobody would show up that would do it. Just absolutely nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Then at around 400,000 subscribers, I was able to find somebody like Paul. Then after 800,000 subscribers hit, I realized there's way more people that can do this. Maybe it's because I'm getting the reach to them, or maybe it's because they're learning how to do it before they come here. That I need to be at a place where if I open if I open up someplace far away, that I've sorted out that I can definitely hire employees that can do this. So I need to feel more comfortable about that first. The second thing is I also need to feel comfortable about the fact that the mail-in business by itself could afford to pay all the people and in this new facility. So a big part of it is, yeah, I have periods of time where I have this much business, but then there's periods of time where I have less business. I would need to know that at any given point in time that there is an absolute truckload of business coming in before I'd necessarily feel comfortable opening up a new space, especially if I was doing it and hiring a bunch more people, especially if I was doing it with my own money.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I wasn't even suggesting leaving New York. I was saying it sounded like the rent's really expensive where you are because you're street front there. But, you can certainly find places in New York, even in Manhattan, that'll be a fraction of that cost because they're not on the street. It's in the attic or, in the basement somewhere where you can have space and shuttle your people there basically and just have someone manning the store and kind of acting like a front and storage and that's type of it. But
Yeah,
uh,
that's one of the things I've been trying to do at the moment. So when I found that other storefront that was really large and $6,700, I jumped at it. It's just I haven't heard back from them, and it is difficult to rent any sort of space in New York City if you're looking to rent it at a reasonable price. If I wanted to have an office that was on the fifth floor of a building that was the same size as my store, and I was willing to spend $15,000 or $20,000, I could get that immediately. But if I actually want to get a space where I'm getting a somewhat decent ripoff, and I'm not going to say decent deal because there is no such thing in New York. But if I was just willing to get ripped off this much versus that much, it does take time to find that. Like the store that I found right now, I was looking for a replacement for that basement space for 6 months, and it took 6 months of walking up and down every single street to find it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a good compromise in the beginning would be have another store or have another space, even if it is on the floor of a building in New York City, to run the mail-in repairs out of, and also the selling parts out of. So I had thought about having a separate space for that because right now the boxes piling to the ceiling in this small space is a pain in the ass, and so is keeping inventory for shipping. So I thought, let's have a second space for that. And that's what I've been in the middle of doing right now. I found a space that was 2 blocks away that was fairly cheap, with decent owners, and they were interested in having us as a tenant. And it just, I'm guessing that one of the other two people who applied got the space instead of me.
Sure.
But it is something I want to like. I just want to make sure that I put my toe in slowly rather than just rent an entirely new space in a very remote location and then hire a bunch of new employees. Because here, if the space is nearby, I can kind of split the employees I have between this space and that space. Maybe it's just trauma from the Rossmann supply company going out of business and me watching all of the money and all the time and all the employees I put into it get reduced into nothing. But after having that experience of working at a business that I was working at 13 or 15 hours a day for 3 to 4 years, get all of it, the money that was invested, all the work, all the inventory, just get reduced to nothing. I want to make sure I don't make that same mistake again, especially since this business is completely self-funded. And I know that I don't have the ability to just go to a bank and ask for a loan if I screw something up.
Have you thought about
I'm much more cautious.
Have you ever thought about looking for investors, like leveraging other people's money to try to expand, or are you like ideologically opposed to that?
I'm not completely I'm probably somewhat opposed to it because anytime I meet somebody like that, they're going to ask me to do things that I don't feel comfortable doing. So, for example, when I had a business partner with the board repair business, I decided to decide, let's see what would happen if I just opened up a company that only did board repairs for other businesses that didn't advertise to the public. The person there was very, very opposed to me doing videos where I show people how to do this online from a profit point of view. He said, if I'm putting my own money into this, it doesn't make sense that you're showing other people how to do what we do. It doesn't make sense the way that you do business or structure your pricing. And I disagreed with him on that. Now, I didn't just disagree ideologically. I also disagreed financially. Ideologically, I think that trying to keep information, that doing business by trying to keep information away from people, it's kind of lame. If I see that somebody is willing to give me information for free, they're the first person that I'm going to go to when I have a problem. I don't like the idea of somebody doing business with me because they're forced to. I want them to be making a choice. Here is all the information on how to do it yourself. But if you don't want to do that, you don't want to learn it, or your time is too valuable, then pay me. I don't want it to be, oh, well, you either have a choice of a broken device or pay me, F you. Now he had, and the business income since 2015 when we was talking with him about that has done this. So clearly he was wrong. I realized that there are a lot of people that I could potentially get to invest in my business, but they would want me to franchise. They would want me to lower the standards of who I hire. They would want me to create some rule book that would make it very easy for me to hire a 16 or 18-year-old stoner that probably could barely get a job at McDonald's and follow this rubric and make money. Yeah. And I don't want to do that. I genuinely don't. I really don't want to do that.
This is like, it's really funny to me because like I have, I feel like so I don't know how much you know about like what I do in terms of like streaming or whatever, but it seems like there comes this time in like a lot of people's lives where you get like really good at something, and giving up control of anything is very fucking hard to do. It's like the worst feeling in the world, and you want to be involved in like every project like personally that you're doing, and like giving that control to other people can like, it can either end like catastrophically, or you can have like a ton of problems related to it. But like at some point it seems like you have to in order to like continue to grow, because you just don't have enough time. Like I'm sure you get this feeling where you wish you could like make copies of yourself or like not sleep, because there's like a million more things you could do at literally every point of your existence. Yeah, it's really frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. And it's part of it is control. The other part of it is just anybody who's an investor is going to look at my business model and say, these are 3 things you seriously have to change or I'm not investing in you. Yeah. And I don't want to change them. And I think
wait, what are those 3 things? Because it sounds like you know what these are. So what's to stop? Like, it sounds like you should be making a fuck ton of money. As I said, you have this brand appeal. So what are you fucking up basically then that you won't change, and for what?
Well, obviously, the first part is giving away information for free. So there's also gradients of how you could give away information for free. You could just give away you could show that you know how to do it. You could show how to do basic things, or you could actually explain how to do the absolute most difficult repairs. That would be an easy way to milk money. So, for example, with the U8900 fault in the 2012 MacBook Pro, I could show you, I know how to fix a short, I know how to do an LCD connector, but if you have a kernel panicking machine that's randomly kernel panicking, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I'm the only one who gets that information. I know somebody in the business who I'm not going to say because I get along with them and I don't want to create an argument over it, that does that, where they'll show all 99% of it, but they'll keep that 1% for themselves. For me, that I actually want to give away, that's the point of information that I want to be clear, if anything, above everything else. So I spend my entire day at work until 3 or 4 in the morning. I find these little faults that nobody else has found, or I know people who found these faults that nobody else has found, like Duke, who showed me the U8900 fault. I'll give him credit for that. And I want to share this with as many people as possible. So once I find that, I have that aha moment where I figure out, okay, the reason that all these touch bars are stuck at 5 volts is because the ISO 9239 is not creating the enable signal for the chip that creates PP3V3 G3 hot. I don't want to keep that proprietary. I have this excited feeling in my head, and I want to share it with as many people as I know. And an investor has said in the past, and many most likely would say now, don't do that. You have enough advertising where people trust you. You've already maximized what you do with YouTube in terms of being able to bring in customers. There's no need to give away that last 1% of information that will allow thousands of other people to fix something themselves instead of send it to you. And
well, I can
I'm
understand
opposed
to
that.
a certain level of that, but in the same part, like, how many of us have the machines and the technology and the shit required to do what you do in the first place? Like, just me seeing that I could potentially fix my laptop for $10 if I go find this chip and do it. Like, I've seen the setup you have, and it's insane. I don't have anything near like that. I have
I actually did this
Yeah.
exact same thing with are you familiar with the term sleeving cables or cable sleeving?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a guy, I don't remember his name, but I watched, he does a bunch of videos and he also does cable sleeving, and I was like, oh, this looks easy. Like, I watched him do it and I followed his tutorials and I tried to do a set and it was a fucking disaster, and I ended up just buying like a set of sleeve cables from him after watching his videos on how to do it. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's strange. Yeah, I mean, it's good advertising. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, which is that the average individual is just going to say, screw it, send it to Lewis anyway. What I'm saying is that investors don't see it that way. They say, okay, can you try to stop the whole sharing everything? You could share the basic stuff, but don't share the absolute
I think you'd
secret
be
information.
surprised. I think that if you look, you have a very large audience now. Investors aren't all just, like so straightforward. Like, if you look, you're going to find someone that's aligned with your thinking and understands what you're doing and wants to see you succeed. I'm shocked that you are not bigger than you are currently. I really am, because as I said before, when I think of computer repair, you're the only guy that comes to my mind. You're like, there's a company, and I forget the name of it, but they do data recovery. And like, you're like that for actual low level.
Are you thinking of drive savers?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're the drive savers of actually fixing motherboards and shit like that. And I was expecting this to be like hundreds of employees, things like that, people shipping in MacBooks from all across the country and you doing it. I'm just shocked that you haven't expanded more at this point.
Yeah, I suppose there's the elements to that besides outside investment, which is one reason, is if I were to expand and have many more people, I would have to come up with some sort of rule book and flowchart as to how to do everything so that I could manage that many people. That's not something that I'm good at. It's not a talent I have. It's a skill that I think you need in order to be a really great business owner, and that's not a skill that I have. And the second one is I would need to see upfront that I can get more business to support that. And I have a lot of business, but I would need to be able to, at any given time, flip a switch and then quadruple the amount of incoming leads that I have in order to make that happen. And that's something that I have to work on before I do that.
Are you passing up leads right now, by any chance?
I'm not passing. No, I take on as much as I can, and that's why I have bags under my eyes. That this lovely Logitech Bria is actually very flattering and removing, but my other camera doesn't lie that much. And that's why I'm at work until 2 or 4 in the morning, and all these days. That's why I'm answering live chats and questions late at night. Anytime I get to a growth spurt stage where I realize that there's a large influx of business, I don't turn it down. I'll just stay, because I know once I overcome that hump, then it's easy sailing from there on in. Like when that CBC News piece came out, there was a hump and there was tons of people sending stuff in. I went from maybe 4 to 5 employees to 12 employees, but I didn't have the 12 employees at the time. So I stayed at work. I dealt with the hump. I was working on Christmas until 1 or 2 in the morning and streaming it while sick. And then I went from 4 to 12 employees. Now it's easier, but now I'm at that next level. Yeah. So I am always trying to level up. And every time I see that there's a bump, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that that bump is not temporary, but that it stays that way. And one push I'm doing now is funny. You mentioned the drive savers thing, is that, they're charging $2,000 to $20,000 for drive recoveries. I spent about $14,000 upgrading the existing lab setup that we have for doing drive data recovery. And I want to start doing videos on that as well, because I want to start taking as much business in terms of hard drives that I can. We barely advertise that we do it past the page I created on the site 2 months ago, and we're overflowing in it. So I'd like to have a separate section of the channel that's the same as this one, except with drive repairs, because I'm sure they may be nice people, but I don't really appreciate the image they put out, which is that you need to have a multi-million-dollar lab and everybody has to wear this silly-looking spacesuit in order to get data off of a hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so I think those are the reasons that I haven't expanded or gotten larger. A, I'm not good at creating a specific guide or rubric on how each employee does their job. I'm not good at creating that flow chart, that specific list of rules that allows me to easily hire people without having to train them a lot or work with them a lot one-on-one. I'm not necessarily great outside of YouTube at figuring out how to get more people to do business with me.
Mm-hmm.
Other companies know how to advertise. They know how to acquire clients. The only way I know how to acquire clients is just putting up a website and doing YouTube videos and hoping people think this is cool. Let me send it to them.
Sure.
And the third is obviously the investment. I would have to take large financial risks that could potentially screw me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that. I'm not willing to take on the risk of me losing my business. And the only way to avoid that is to get an investor, and getting an investor means potentially changing the way I do business in a manner that I would find unacceptable.
Yeah. To be fair for all of this, I'm sorry, I'm going by the timelines you gave earlier. You're still like pretty young, right? You're like 31 about?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, same age as me. We're young. We're very young. 30's a new 20. Okay, cool. I mean, I guess we could go over like business specifics all day. I'm kind of curious, just because of your position in the industry and everything. Moving to like a more general topic, do you think that we're ever going to reach a point where it's just impossible not to do first-party repairs anymore? Do you think we're heading in that direction, or do you think that'll become possible?
I think, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, like, for example, the thing with Apple with this T2 chip, where if you replace a certain part of the machine, it will detect that you've replaced that part of the machine and then say, you can't, oh, okay, we're not accepting this. That kind of, I don't think it's necessarily just going to be where it's too difficult to do. I think it's going to be where these measures are put in place on purpose to keep people from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there will be a way around it. I think it's going to prevent a lot of the low-level people from doing it, but it's going to be a greater opportunity for the people who are able to figure out ways around it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's probably 3 ways that it could become impossible to do repair yourself. The first is when it becomes far too complicated to do, where even somebody with all of my equipment does not have any of what's necessary to do the job. The second is going to be if the companies actually succeed and nobody finds workarounds for these things, like a T2 chip, which says, if you change your screen, we're going to recognize that it's a different screen and not allow it to work with the computer. If nobody else figures out how to take the programming off the old screen and put it into the new screen, that could be it. The third is going to be if it simply makes no economic sense to do so. So if somebody shows up with a device that's $100 and it needs 1 to 2 hours of open-ended troubleshooting from somebody who's intelligent and experienced, even if it is fixable, there's no way to make that viable in a way that works unless I'm willing to pay the person, or the person is willing to work for $5 an hour to do a very difficult job. So one of those 3 things could occur to make it not viable into the future. I'm not sure which is going to be the first one that's going to, the first domino that's going to fall, but I'm kind of curious to see.
Sure. We talked a little bit about this before the show off stream. Do you follow this in other industries as well? Like, for example, like, do you follow stuff going on in the car industry where manufacturers are saying you're not allowed to do changes to cars in certain ways, or you can't mess with the ECU or anything without it being like a violation of copyright? Or
Rich Rebuilds has a really good channel on that, and I've wanted to meet up with him on it. It's just he's been ridiculously busy, and I've been ridiculously busy, so we haven't had time to. But Rich Rebuilds has a great channel where he rebuilds Tesla cars, and he has to deal with this stuff where you're not allowed to replace this, or there's no availability for a part for that. Paul, who's one of my best employees for the past 2 years, he used to be a car mechanic for about 20 years, and he also worked doing mechanics and technical stuff in the Marine Corps when he was in the Marines.
Wait, hello? Wait, is my stream still down?
At least his claim is that I don't know how to make money at this because nobody wants to pay me.
Wait, I'm sorry.
With
Oh
MacBook,
my God. The server. I just switched to servers again. You said you had a friend that was working in the Marines, and then.
Yeah, so Paul, one of my better employees, he was in the Marine Corps for about 4 or 5 years, and he also was a mechanic and technician for 20 years prior.
Okay.
And he was saying that as a mechanic, it's very difficult to make money now versus before because nobody wants to pay for anything. So, if he says this is going to be $150 or $300 to fix, they go, my nephew will do that for $20 or $30, and then is that there's nobody, at least in where he was working, that was willing to pay for repairs. So it went away that way. So whereas in our industry, I don't know if it's going to go away because everything is so cheap, or because everything is so impossible to fix due to the supply chain and the chips just saying, I don't want to accept a new part. So
For
Apple
that
with
car
the T2.
mechanic stuff, do you really have people that can do those repairs for cheap? Is that really possible?
No, they don't exist. They destroy it. But
Yeah,
then
okay,
once they
yeah.
destroy it, they don't bring it back to the shop. At
Yeah,
least the way Paul is describing it.
I remember when I was a kid, doing like switching out like a car stereo, like in my car, was like a lot of fun and easy to do. And nowadays, if you want to take out like a car stereo, ignoring like the 50 different ways that your head units are like integrated with a vehicle, like the whole dashboard is like one piece, and you need like specialized tools just to like pop certain like things off the dashboard in order to take things off. It's a nightmare now. I imagine it probably impacts more than I only think I know about like cars and computers, but it's kind of interesting. Something else that I joked about earlier. There's a concept called software as a service, where you basically charge people a monthly fee in order to let them use some software, and then you either update it in an ongoing manner, or you provide support or something. And it seems like we're moving towards this like hardware as a service thing, where even stuff that you physically buy and physically own, you don't necessarily have the ability to use it in the way you'd want to all the time. Like you either have to pay specialty repair shops, or you have to pay some ongoing fee to keep even like your hardware working or whatever. It's a really strange world where I don't know, like moving forward, like you're gonna have to be paying like monthly fees to keep access or to keep your own stuff working. It's really strange.
Yeah, I can see both sides to it. At least when it comes to software, the manufacturer side is people pay a one-time fee, but we get inundated with support requests from people who don't know how to use a computer.
Mm-hmm.
Screw it, we're charging you by the month, and the moment that you stop paying, I don't have to answer these stupid questions anymore. On the user side, I don't feel like paying $30 a month for a piece of software that used to cost me $100 to buy. I'm not paying for that. I'd like to own things. So I definitely lean more towards the side of I want to own things. I don't want to pay a monthly fee for something unless it is above and beyond amazing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, so I see this at the very least with there are a lot of people in the farming industry that can discuss what John Deere does when it comes to these devices, where you're constantly paying for somebody to show up and come out. You're paying like $1,500 for them to reprogram something just so a part you replace can work again.
Somebody in chat was just saying that earlier. If you're farmers, there are like farmers that have to become hackers in order to get like some of their machinery to like continue to work, and it's like a huge there's like a lot of dumb stuff going on with that too.
Yeah, that's something that is I definitely would like to actually own products rather than or own the software that I buy rather than have a license to be able to use it on a monthly basis. And I think you were talking about something like people renting game time or renting the hardware to use their game. It's just I don't like the rent to own thing. I like owning things, and I think that's part of the resurgence of vinyl. I don't like vinyl very much, but I understand this concept of people they don't want to deal with a streaming service. They like the idea that I own this.
Yeah, having your stuff. It's not even if it's
cool.
just like an actual
to have
file.
Stuff.
Yeah, like sometimes I don't want to have to like load a Spotify playlist. Like I like having at least the files on my computer. That I know that.
Yeah, I don't want to have to install if I have a file that I can transfer from one device to another. I don't want to have to deal with. I have to log in and use this specific service in this specific way. I want to own it. And if you're saying that I no longer own it, that I'm renting it, that's okay. But you have to make sure that what I'm renting is that much better than what I'm owning, that it's at the very least worth me losing the privilege of ownership.
Yeah, well, especially because if you like, a lot of people don't realize this. I don't know how much you do with like gaming, but like for things like Steam, like if Steam goes or Valve goes out of business and that service just shuts down, I mean, like you don't have any of those games. Like it's just gone.
Yeah.
You don't have.
I agree. That's bull. Like at least with Dota, okay, it's free, so a big whoop. But if I paid for a game and I have to rely on another service existing, that sucks. Now, what's interesting with what Apple is doing when it comes to ownership is when they say, at least there was this one case with this guy named Henrik Husby that's going on in Norway. He was replacing customer screens. He saved the old ones. He sent them to China. A refurbisher was replacing the glass on it without using the LCD, because the LCD that made the picture was fine, just the front glass was broken, and sending it back to him. And they were getting taken. And Apple was saying, that's counterfeit. You counterfeited my stuff. You counterfeited our screens. And he's saying, no, that was mine. The customer gave me their broken screen. I sent it to somebody who then fixed it and sent it back. You don't get to say that you don't get to say that you have any say in this transaction anymore. They're trying to when it comes to redefining ownership and renting. What I find interesting is what Apple's doing when it comes to redefining refurbishing as counterfeiting. If you replace the speakers on your car, do you have to rip off the Ford or the any of the logos that say who made the car?
Well, this is an interesting thing when it comes down to the Keurig or the printer market, right? So, what's the argument that the printer manufacturer would give as to why you shouldn't use the other printer? It's like, you know, why you have to use our ink? It's because I sold you this printer for $8 and it cost me $85 to make it. That's why you have to use my ink and only my ink. Or the coffee maker would say, we spent all this, you know, designing this type of shit and initial marketing and that type of stuff on that end. So the change is with the fact that you do already own practically nothing. So all the software on your computer, for the most part, it's all licensed. You understand what I'm saying?
Even
It's just like,
Yeah.
I mean, even I remember growing up, like I used to be, my financial situation was really, really bad growing up. So I would pirate things out of necessity because if I didn't pirate it, I wouldn't have it. Like I just full stop. And now that I'm older and I am obviously very wealthy, I do my streaming stuff. It's like, yeah, I'll buy software if I have the ability to. And like, you know, I work with PDFs and whatnot a lot because I do taxes and all that. And I go to like buy, you know, I want to buy Apple or not an Apple. I'm sorry. I want to buy Adobe's like, you know, PDF software bundle shit. Like you can't even do that. You have to buy like, I think you have to pay like a monthly subscription to like the Adobe Cloud. And it's like, I don't need the software support. I don't need any help. I just want to like buy some software that works on my computer. And even for that, like I feel like such an asshole like pirating stuff or downloading stuff because I don't want to like have to sign in. Oh my God, my biggest pet peeve when people start doing this, we have to sign in on programs on your computer. You have to sign in to use the program. It's like, what is happening right now? Like this is a program on my computer. Why do I have to sign into an external web server?
GoPro does that too.
Oh,
GoPro does that. If you want to, you have to sign in with your username and password and everything just to be able to view stuff on the GoPro and take it off if you don't want to use it on MTP.
And then all these fucking databases get leaked, and all of their passwords are in plain text. And there's always like XSplit had this happen. I'm pretty sure it's happened with I think it was with Adobe stuff where they had their big database leak, and it's like fuck, man. Like yeah, that stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah. I don't like dealing with that shit. And the interesting thing with what you said with the printers, I'm not saying it's right, but when they say we sold you the printer cheaply and we're planning to make money on the ink, so you need to buy our ink, at the very least, there's some sort of business argument that could be made. We gave you this for cheap up front. Now, when it comes to Apple, they're saying, okay, well, they did not sell you the phone at no profit. They made some decent money selling you the phone. It's not like you can only get the screen from us. So I find it very, very creepy when they say that that this is a counterfeit device rather than a refurbished device. And I find it really creepy when people defend that, because if you take that argument and you apply it back towards every other place where we've accepted that argument is bullshit, how do you apply that to a car? I can't say that if I changed your oil with oil that was not the manufacturer one, if I changed your tail light with a different brand, even if I gave you a shitty brand garbage tail light that was not the same as what was in your Chevy, you cannot say that's not a Chevy. It's still a Chevy. It's a Chevy with a shitty tail light. It's not a Ross mobile or whatever.
Do you feel like Apple is more predatory on this front than other companies?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of companies that do things that are bad. I just think that Apple is one of the best examples because they don't really even try to hide the ball with it. Like I haven't seen any other phone companies yet say, you had our screen refurbished, that is now a counterfeit. And I'm not saying I don't acknowledge there's a problem with screen refurbishing, that there are a lot of people that do poor quality refurbs that just so that they could sell the cheapest trash. That's definitely a problem. But throwing out the concept of refurbishing versus counterfeiting, or throwing out the concept of ownership, is, you know, you're trying to solve the problem with a hammer. It's not the way to solve it. And when it comes to repairability, people will say, well, why don't you criticize Lenovo for it? Well, okay, if I want to ask Lenovo for a schematic, they may not give it to me. But you know what they did? They made a laptop where if you spill a gallon of water into it, it comes out little holes in the bottom rather than destroying the motherboard. Or they don't have 16 different sensors on it that if one specific one has an issue, that the machine's going to run dirt slow.
Although you do run into, I was gonna say you do run into the issues where there are no like good actors here, because I'm pretty sure wasn't Lenovo one of the first people to start loading fucking bloatware into the actual flash, like
the Superfish. That was some bullshit
on the actual motherboard. So even if you did a full refresh of your operating system, you reinstall the OS, you formatted the drive and everything, it would still find its way onto your drive after. Oh god.
That made me sick because I like ThinkPads and I like the way they work and function, and just I've been saying to people to buy them, and then I just look at it and go, really,
yeah, all these new devices you get,
Chinese company loading spyware onto it.
It's the worst,
fucking
right?
Great.
What device do you get now that doesn't come out of the box fucked? I mean, that's the one thing you have to give Apple, is that for the most part, it's not fucked. Buy any Android phone right now, except for like one directly from Google.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the shit that you're gonna have.
Even if
to
you get that from Google.
phone.
Apple at least says that they care about privacy. At the very least, they present the image that they care about privacy. Google does not even present that much. We are mining as much data as possible. All of these services are opt out, not opt in. I did a video on that recently where I managed to log in and find 7 years of transcripts of voice to text. And they said, "Well, why didn't you just delete it?" And I go, I didn't opt into this shit. It's opt out. You have to opt out of all of this stuff being saved.
Mm-hmm.
I will give Apple that they seem to care about privacy way more than Google does. That's why because there are a lot of people who watch my channel and say, he pointed out an Apple hardware defect. He's frustrated with how Apple treats his users. Therefore, I can just go on this whole fuck crapple, fuck MacFags, all this other horseshit that you're typically used to seeing in cancerous YouTube comments.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I never go off on that is because I understand that there's a reason that people want to buy Apple products. The software, there's very often software on their platforms that is not on other platforms that does a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
They actually care about user privacy to some extent, or at least they pretend to care about it, where none of the other alternatives in the phone world for smartphones do. I understand why people choose to buy their products, and I don't criticize them for that. I simply criticize the people that get. I criticize when somebody is repeatedly screwed over and just goes back and gives them more money.
Okay, yeah, but you have like it's frustrating because it seems like you have no alternative these days. Like there's not like the good there's not like the Stallman approved mobile device or something. You know, you don't have like these things.
There is, but like then you can't do anything, right? Like
you get locked out.
I remember
of every
reading this one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember reading this one. I forget how long ago it was, but he was using a Lenote, Lenote, not Lenovo, Lenote laptop. And if I remember correctly, please look it up if I'm wrong, is that it didn't even have suspend because it had an open BIOS. It did not even have suspend functionality. You know, you close the lid, it suspends to RAM, and then you open it up and it goes back to where you were. Mm-hmm. So you technically, I'm sure you can find an alternative that is free. It's just, you're free in this aspect, but are you free in terms of you can actually use what the rest of the world is? Are you playing in everybody else's sandbox?
The quality drop off, if you want to like not be spied on or literally not have the worst apps forced on you ever, is just so massive. Like that, what you have to give up to do that, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not just for phones. You go get any computer, like anyone who's tech savvy. What's the first thing you do when you get a new laptop? Fucking wipe that shit immediately.
Every time, yeah. Or the first thing you do when you get a phone is like you have to. I would say like I did this a long time ago when I got an Android phone that wasn't a Pixel. I rooted the phone. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get rid of all the bloatware. But scrolling through the 500 programs on that phone, I was like, I have no idea what I can safely delete. Like, yeah, Jesus.
And even Windows does this. When you do a fresh install of Windows, why the fuck is like Candy Crush Saga like pre-installed and all this?
Because they integrated. Because now Windows is being sold as software as a service. That's why they tried to push it for free on so many people, right? From Windows 7, the upgrades and everything were free because they just want you to have access to that Windows Store and everything so that you can buy product after product. Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole thing is disaster. Like, I don't know if you use Skype at all, Lewis, but like in Skype right now, they've stored your conversations in the cloud for the last 2 years and you can't delete them. So if anyone was to hack your Skype account and log in from another client, they can pull up all your messages for the last 2 years in Skype and there's no way to remove it. Like, that's crazy that this type of thing exists.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought that the next serious, and this is just me being wearing my tinfoil hat, but the next serious sort of civil war, societal breakdown is going to be when all of these services are hacked. I can look at your Google Hangouts history. I can see everything that you've ever typed into your phone via voice to text that you didn't opt out of. I can see every Google Hangouts conversation you had at 2 a.m. when you were frustrated after your wife just broke up with you and left you when you were drunk. I could see every single thing you've ever said in the world, and then I can use that against you, or I can say, well, see, that means this guy's a bad person. And at some point, I think once all these services do start getting hacked, because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and you're able to see all this information stored on us, you're going to start to see a side of humanity that you weren't used to seeing before, which is you'll have, for the first time in human history, unfettered access to everything somebody has said, written, thought, or done in a private moment.
This is literally, there was a South Park episode about this, wasn't there, with the Danes that were coming out and doing this? But yeah, I mean, this is crazy. The idea everyone's private search history would be out there for anyone.
Not even the search history, but things that you've typed. Like, is there any time that you've typed something into a box to another human being where you've thought it would look really bad right now if the entire world saw this
Not really bad, but this is a career ender. Oh yeah, I'm sure we all have multiple.
There's a few of those.
Like I enjoy dark humor, so I'm sure there's a bunch of it. But there's also things that I've said when I was really aggravated or angry or pissed off, and then 40 seconds later I realize, yeah, that no, I don't really think that's kind of crazy. Okay, but like that little moment will then be used to define you for the rest of your
Yeah.
life once all of these services are hacked, and that's going to be some serious pandemonium.
I
When
don't think
all of those things
actually
are hacked.
anything will ever happen though. I don't think there will ever be any civil unrest because these devices all become so heavily integrated into our lives that I think it becomes unfathomable to ever live or operate without them. Like for instance, I think if I would have said like 15 or 20 years ago, what was it, like 200 million American social security numbers were going to be leaked, like people would be like, oh wow, this is like a game changer, like something serious would happen. But like that happened. Was it Experian that got hacked by some Chinese company? Was it Equifax? Yeah, and it was like 200 million socials got leaked, and like I don't even know if people remember this even happened. And this was like within a year ago, wasn't it? Like a year or two tops.
I think the big issue is that's not public, right? So you know what? The best thing that could happen to the United States is if all the social security numbers they just literally were leaked publicly, because then we could get rid of this stupid system that we use in the United States, like to identify yourself. Hey, what's your social security number? And it's like, how is this identifying stuff anymore? It needs to be gotten rid of completely. It's the worst form. It was never designed for this in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, Lewis, one thing you said earlier, I just want to go back to this. You mentioned another company, Supply Group. What happened there? You said that it shut down.
Yeah, so one of the things that it makes you competitive in this business, at the very least, when I was just doing mostly screen replacements and things like that, were getting quality parts and the price that you're getting them at. And many of the vendors that I had been buying stuff from for several years, they were selling me stuff that was either junk or not compatible because they would assume something's compatible since they don't actually work in the industry, or it was low quality. So so it was difficult for me to find parts. So I kind of had to become my own supplier. So I proposed with somebody else. I said I was selling a lot of the parts that I was getting that were decent quality. So if a part was typically $240, and I did all the research to find the one vendor that has it available for $100, I would sell them for about $150 online and make my money, and off of that, as well as making the money off of the doing repairs. And I remember asking this one person who had given me my first loan of $7,000. I said, okay, you gave me a year to pay back that loan. I paid it back in 2 months. Can I get another one this time for this amount of money, so that I could buy this set of screens and resell them? And he said, no, but I would be open to a partnership where I own 20% of the business. So I started that as a business, and that wound up being a very bad idea for several reasons. So the first was I wound up trying to do too much. I started trying to expand into too many different areas and selling items that weren't necessarily profitable. Screens are also one of the hardest pieces of hardware to make money selling because of breakage in the mail, people buying the wrong one, since one device can use 3 different incompatible screens. And that business wound up going completely belly up at the end of 2013. So that was my first large scale business failure. So he loaned me, I think, about $20,000. I wound up getting other investment from credit lines, and all the parts, all the money, everything from that business over a period of 3 years wound up disappearing into virtually nothing, after which I went out of business. So I keep that experience in my head. I try to remember why it is it failed. I did a 1-hour video a few weeks ago on exactly all the things I did wrong in that business that caused it to fail. And it's something that I keep in my head so that I don't make those same mistakes again.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I kind of, it's crazy to think that screens in particular are like, when you think about the logistics of how much it costs to go buy like an actual monitor at a Staples, the fact that they had to get that here from China, the cost really doesn't work out that well. In like the repair business, I imagine is even more brutal. Is that one of the higher margin items that you do, or what is the highest margin item that you do in your store as far as repairs?
Well, yeah, that used to be. So when I first started out, if you had an A1181 MacBook, I think I was charging $160 to replace the screen. I was able to get it for $58. So I would show up to your location anywhere in New York City. I would take the machine apart, put it back together, give you a 1-year warranty on it, and I got to make my $102 off of that process. Now, if I buy that screen for $58 versus somebody else, if somebody else is buying it for $140, I'm able to offer a much better price because I was able to get it for much cheaper. So the price that you were getting your screens at really did matter, but it also mattered that you got something good. If you were getting the good ones, like the LP133WX1TLA1, I can't believe I remember this number 11 years later, but you were able to offer, so today, to tell somebody your brightness control will still work. The color profiles will look like it did on the original versus having to talk your way through, this is going to look different than the original one. So it was, being able to get good parts was a lot of what would make you competitive. And the experience that I had, if I bought a screen from Bliss Computers, half the time it would have a bunch of dead pixels, or it would just not be the right one, because they would buy something that was compatible that wouldn't actually work with that device. And everybody that I knew that was in this business hated the name Bliss Computers, and was just, they did the business with them because they didn't know who else to buy from. So I just said, screw it, let me try to see if I could do better myself. And what I learned from that experience is that I can see that somebody else is not offering a good service, but what I should be doing, instead of saying I'm going to do better, is asking, why are they not offering a good service? So with them, if they made their price even $1 above the cheapest person on eBay, your sales just turned off immediately. You would go I could go from selling 1,200 items a day to selling 20 items a day by just adjusting my price on eBay of all of my products by 3 to 5%. The second is that there would be so many people who would buy stuff, and then they would actually return the screen, their old broken screen, in the box that had my new screen, and they would file a PayPal claim saying it didn't work. I would get it back, and I would see Hewlett-Packard part stickers on it. It was very obvious this is not what I sold you, and they would win the case. So, and the third thing was that the margins were very, very low in that business. So after several years, I realized at the end of it, okay, after going through this experience, losing a bunch of money and failing, that's why you offered shit service, because the money was not, the customers were not willing to pay for that level of service. You also had a lot of fraud, and it's very difficult with that low profit margin to find somebody who is an actual technician to write your website and tell you what's compatible with what. So that experience taught me that rather than assume that a business is offering crap service because they're crap, it could be that they're a crap business and that you could do much better, or it could be that the factors that they're working with are factors where you would not be able to offer better service.
Do you work as a parts retailer yourself, or no?
Yeah, now I sell parts online, but I sell everything besides screens. Like literally everything besides screens. I will sell parts to other repair shops that I think have some sort of profit margin. Like I can buy a chip for $2 and sell it for $3.50 or something. And I'm also targeting a clientele of people that are not going to break it and send back the old one in the box. So what I do is I sell the parts that I use for repairs on YouTube. So if somebody says, I wish I could buy this station, or why does my why is it that your hot air station heats up immediately and I have to burn the chip for 10 minutes? So I sell that. If somebody goes, where do I buy that chip from? I always have to grab it off of a donor machine. I don't know where to find it. I'll sell that. So I started the online parts store again as a way of selling to my YouTube audience of people that wanted to do the stuff that I'm doing, but they just didn't know where to buy the individual chips and parts. It's not the same way as before where I'm soliciting business from all the general public. Technically, anybody can go to my website, and if they want, they could buy an LT3470, but it's mainly marketed to the YouTube audience. So I want that small community of people that are opening these types of repair shops or deciding to try this business on their kitchen table to have a one-stop shop where they could buy all the things that I have to do what I do. Because the hardest part of this for me in the beginning was, where do I get this part at an affordable price? What tool is it that I use? Where do I get this chip from? Or when I get it, it's not a chip that they ripped off of a broken motherboard that's also dead. So the goal with the online store now is to make the lives easier of the people that are trying to do what I do, rather than it being a profit center. If my business would not be sustainable at all if it was just a parts store, because that doesn't really make much money.
Sure.
So moving forward, how do you see Twitch and YouTube and things like that complementing your business? And do you have any specific plans for growing the revenue from your YouTube and Twitch? And I bring this up because one of the things that I saw that you did is you're pushing Vimeo over YouTube, and you pay for Vimeo, but you can't get paid from there, meaning there's no partner program or anything there. So what's your logic behind that? And yeah.
Well, the thing is, YouTube doesn't they don't have any sort of communication with the people that that are on their platform, and they don't seem to actually understand how their platform works at all. It's there's the Wizard of Oz behind the cloak, and I haven't had an experience with censorship or any of that stuff, but I see it happening with enough other people that I would like to have a backup. I don't like the idea that at any given time, if something happens, all this work that I invested is gone. I would like it to be just like you said. You don't want to. I do pay monthly for Vimeo, so perhaps this is a bad example, but I pay Vimeo for the service. So it's not like if my channel disappeared, there I can actually call somebody. There's customer service. They have an office in New York City that's about a quarter of a mile away from me that they can go to. I don't really have much reason to trust YouTube, and so I would rather people view things on my platform than view it on a platform that belongs to somebody else. I don't even think that YouTube has a sustainable business. They lose anywhere from $500 million to $2 billion a year. And one example that I had of YouTube not them not even knowing how their business works. So they have that thing where they'll have somebody reach out to you to help you with your content and your branding and all that stuff, a partner manager or something like that. So she was talking to me about the new guidelines regarding profanity and things of that nature. Now, every now and then, for some strange reason, a video that I did 1 or 3 years ago will just get a bunch of comments, and I'll look in the analytics and it'll say that it wasn't that it became popular on Reddit, it's just it randomly got pushed to a bunch of people's feeds. So I had this one video that was entitled IT Specialist Can Suck My Dick, and it had a very provocative thumbnail. It wasn't one of my better videos, and I asked her, I said, okay, I understand everything you're telling me here. Here's my analytics. If this is the case, why is it that this 3-year-old video that has a very profane title, a very profane content, being pushed to so many people in the suggested feed? And she had no idea. So it's like, you don't understand how your own platform works. If I have a problem with anything regarding the platform, there's nobody that I can speak to. So I don't feel secure there. I want there to be somewhere where there's some sort of accountability to me if something goes wrong, where there's somebody that I can actually speak to. Mm-hmm. So that's why I tell people, I would prefer that you view my stuff on Vimeo, because on that platform, at least I have some level or degree of control over, me just getting randomly kicked off or banned or something like that. And in terms of expanding what I do online, I definitely would want to start doing more data recovery videos. I've spent about $10,000 or $12,000 on new data recovery stuff, new cameras, lenses, capture cards, everything, so that when Steve is doing Drive Savers level work, I want there to be another section of the channel where we try to, demystify that as well. There's not a lot of people out there who are trying to show you not just, here's me in my astronaut suit in my $10 million ISO 9 whatever certified room doing what you can't do, pay me $10,000. I'd like to have a channel showing, here's how we actually do it from start to beginning. I'm not saying you should do this at home, but watch us recover a drive. Let's show you, let's try and demystify another part of this business.
Since you bring this up, this is very interesting, because it seems like you kind of have a thing with the drive savers. Because, I think some of us have probably seen like the Linus Tech Tips tour of the facility and things like that. And it is like, it's the clean suit NASA space stations type of stuff walking through. Are you trying to say that like 95% of drive repairs you can do without that's complete overkill and bullshit, or what?
100. Yes, I'm saying I don't know if 95% is the proper percentage, but we have a laminar flow bench, and Steve sits there with his V-neck T-shirt and his chest hair hanging out of it, and he recovers drives. Some of the drives he's recovered are drives that Drive Savers didn't recover, and I really don't like that old school type of advertising, that old school type of, we have 25 years experience and all of these certifications and a top-notch facility. I think people are sick and tired of that. They would rather deal with somebody who is a human. They'd rather deal with somebody who, well, here's how I do what I do. Mm-hmm. Here's me showing you that I know how to do what I do. Here you can watch as I do what I do and learn. They'd rather deal with that than deal with that old setup. And I don't like, especially when I've seen some of their phone repair videos where they have the people wearing the spacesuit. You don't need to wear the spacesuit to recover data from a fucking phone. You can get dust in a phone. The NAND chip actually has underfill on it, so dust cannot get into the phone. And I just find it, I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea that you need to be this far above the average person in order to do something. I don't like people promoting I don't know, I'm probably screwing up saying this. Let me rephrase. I don't like the idea that of promoting yourself as you need to be perfect in order to get something done. I think it's discouraging to people who would want to enter the business. And I think that there's some level of intellectual dishonesty involved there when you say that this is how you need to do something. And
yeah, I run into a lot of that. I totally agree.
I'll just I'll probably get in shit for saying this. Drive Savers has bought chips from us twice. I'm just saying, the company that Apple refers you to, Apple says this is the only company that you should go to when it comes to data recovery. They're the only company that Apple will actually say, yeah, you could probably go here to get your phone recovered. They have bought chips from me. Like, I have invoice. I'm not going to say what, but like they've. I don't like this idea that this company is the god of the business. Nobody can be like them. You only need to go to them. They are authorized. They are certified. And at the end of the fucking day, when they need a chestnut or a TriStar, it's like store.rossmanngroup.com or a U4700 for a A1534.
How many more of these like acronyms do you know? Must be a lot.
Way too many.
It's like
way too
burned
many.
into your brain. All right, I'm very
Other
impressed.
people spent their 20s socializing. I spent my 20s knowing what LP133 WX1 TLA1 is compatible with. it's a but
Interesting. Wow. So
yeah,
moving forward with the YouTube stuff. Okay, do you see that being? Do you think that could get that revenue level could start being more significant for you personally versus the store, or do you think that exists entirely just to drive more revenue to the store itself? Like, do you see yourself becoming a personality? Because we see you making videos that are technology related, but nothing to do with fixing a phone or fixing your computer. So, yeah.
No, I don't see that for a. I don't see it just because in terms of YouTube money, there is what people go to socialblade.com and they assume I make, and then there's what I actually make off of it, and that they're very, very different figures. I don't make an amount off of YouTube that is an amount where I would I would never feel safe making a living off of YouTube, given how easy it is to get removed from the platform, and the fact that the people that work for the platform cannot even tell me how their algorithm works when it comes to why did you promote this content that you say you don't want, and I don't see myself I could see myself making more money as a result of, here, let me show you that we're best in class at drive repair. Let me show you how to do your own drive repair. And by the way, if you know somebody that needs a drive recovered, send it to us first. I could see that being a way to make money. But in terms of making money solely off of YouTube monetization, I would never want to trust that as a way to make a living.
So you don't really have a specific drive of being a creator or going down that path. Really, you do this for fun to.
Yeah, I'm not a people person either, because when people have showed up and said I watch your stuff on YouTube, they're surprised and I'm not all excited, or that I don't act like they would if you met Linus or Jay's 2 cents or something. But like Eli, the computer guy, Eli has said, he's another YouTube channel that's almost to 1 million subscribers. He's said that he has Asperger's syndrome and everything, and I don't think I'm that far into it, but neither of us are people. Neither of us really saw ourselves being content creators to the point where people from around the world were watching. Eli's idea was, I'm going to get maybe 30 to 60 people to pay a monthly fee to watch instructional videos. My idea was maybe 50 to 300 other repair shops will watch what I posted and learn board repair. My dad used to say that if you want something to be different, you have to be a part of the change you want to see in the world. I was very pissed off that when I was trying to learn this, there was no guide, there was no source of information. So I figured I can't be pissed off that there's no source of information if I don't put it out there. So I put it out there for that reason, so that somebody else who is following my little path through life will get to this point and say, the information's there. But I never imagined having more than 300 people watching. If I did, I probably would have, not had my face on camera and not put my name on the channel, just because it feels weird knowing that 820,000 people know what I look like or what my name is. It's not something I'm not necessarily comfortable with being that popular on a social level.
Same. It's really a burden, but we go.
No, if I could go back in time and redo it, if somebody said you're gonna have 800,000 people watching, not 300, I would have never put my name or face on the camera.
Really?
I would have put the information out there so you could learn the stuff, so that but I would have never put my name or my face attached to it.
Okay. Well, so for people that watch your stuff, what's the next big project or something you're working on? If you could promote, or if you want people to look at one future thing you're doing, what's something you're excited that's coming up?
I'm excited about doing all the data recovery videos with Steve. I want to do the same thing I did with the board repair process. So before, if you needed a board repair, Apple would tell you that it's impossible. The only companies that did it would show you these 100,000 square foot facilities, people wearing the spacesuit, the oscilloscope that nobody even fucking uses because you're not measuring, things on the board using that. I want to do the exact same thing I did with board repair, with drive repair, and I just have to find the time to do it, which is hard. But over the next few months, I would like to have an equal amount of hard drive recovery videos as we do the board repair videos. And I don't want it to be some advertising wankery where, I show you it really sped up and say, send it to us if you want it done. I want it to be something that people can actually learn from. And that's something I'm really excited about.
Is that all going to be posted on your main channel? Did you say you were creating a separate channel for that?
Yeah, that's on the main channel.
Gotcha.
And
Cool.
the second thing I was kind of excited about was if I do wind up getting one of these second store locations, I wanted to get rid of my Amazon affiliate links, as I'm trying to get rid of as many as I can, and so that I link to my own store selling stuff. And I'd like to actually have a little setup inside where people can walk in and try out a microscope or try out a soldering station or something before they buy, and have the opportunity to buy all the stuff that's on the website in the store. So if you're a 17-year-old kid that just wants to get some soldering iron for his birthday or a microscope or something for your Arduino projects, there will actually be a place in New York City where you can buy it. But it's not just going to be like a Best Buy or a Circuit City where you see the product, it's behind some glass thing, and you can only touch it once you've checked out, where you could actually try it in the store. That's something that I'd like to do if I do get the other space.
Be careful. Radio Shack went broke trying to do this back in the day, right? Be careful. Not a lot of guys that are into that stuff. And one caution on the Amazon thing as well, as someone who has a lot of experience with the Amazon affiliate stuff, you can spend a lot of time doing that type of thing, but the revenue really isn't there. Because if someone goes and they click your Amazon link and they don't buy what you're doing, but they go and they buy 100 rolls of toilet paper, you're getting a kickback from that. So you have to really...
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've seen that. And I wouldn't want to open a store solely to do that, but I figure if I have all of the product in this location already, and I have a person who's shipping stuff and packaging boxes there already, and all the products are already in that location, it wouldn't be that much extra effort to just have one on display or have one unit up there so that somebody could try it. I'm not saying it would be a sexy retail facility, but I would like to have there be at least one place in New York City where if you do something similar to what I do, you can actually buy a microscope, or you could buy a hot air station. I'm not saying you're going to walk into a place that looks like Sears or Best Buy. You're going to be walking into a place with, Paul cursing as he's doing long screw repair and Mikey shipping stuff. But that you would be able to say, I'm kind of curious how this microscope looks. Can I try it? And I wouldn't want it to be the main business, because if it was the main business, there's no way in hell that would ever pay rent or employees.
Yeah,
but if the employees that I'm already paying off of the work that's already profitable could take a few seconds out of their day while shipping, because they do have spare time over the course of a day, to also just take something out of a box for somebody to try, I like to do that. And I hear a lot of people saying Amazon is killing us, large online stores are killing us, but they have a local store where you're not allowed to try anything. You can't open anything. You can't touch anything. So of course I'm going to go to Amazon where it's cheaper, because you're offering a shittier experience and you want more money. I'd like to have some kind of store where you can try all the things in my type of setup and then buy one if you want. And it probably would cost 10 or 20 bucks more than it would at Amazon. But I'm hoping at that point that the people that show up are not the kind of dicks that are going to go, after all of that demoing, I'm still going to go to Amazon to save $5
People
or $10.
definitely do that. This is what people do with Best Buys, right? People run to Best Buy, they demo a product in real life, and then they run on Amazon and buy it or some shit.
Yeah, but people hate Best Buy. Nobody gives a shit, because there's no loyalty to Best Buy. What has Best Buy done for the community? What has Best Buy done for you to the point of earning that loyalty? They've done jack shit. But I think if I've said, here's exactly how to run the business that I run, here's exactly how to do what I do, here's how to here, you could try all the equipment that I have. At that point, if somebody is so much of a cunt that they are willing to say, I will go to Amazon because they're selling it for $265, whereas you want $270, fine, fuck it, mea culpa, I give up. And if the idea winds up failing, then I'll wind up undoing it. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think that, especially in a city like New York, where people are sick and tired of Starbucks Chase, Starbucks Chase, Starbucks Chase, Starbucks Chase, and Starbucks Chase liquor store, that they would be willing to spend the extra $5 if I'm selling something that they really want and need, and I'm willing to let them try it, use it, and they can talk to an expert in the field who will help advise them on what to do. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about that. If I actually hear back from the space, which probably won't, but if I do, and I'm excited about doing the data recovery videos a lot, because I find it fun to. Part of what I find fun about this is taking something that somebody else thinks is impossible, or that they don't know how to do, or where the information's not there, and filling the void and putting the information out there. And I focus on the monetization later, not in the beginning. I don't go into it thinking, how can I monetize showing people how to do drive repair? No, I just spent a few $1,000 on lenses and camera equipment and all this other stuff. And I don't know, maybe that part I figure out later. But the excitement for demystifying something that is currently mystified is definitely the driving factor. And it's what I'm excited about doing next.
Okay, cool.
My cat's not, because he just decided to go to sleep, as you can see.
Nice.
Looks like a pretty thick cat.
He's 25 pounds. He's fat.
Holy shit.
Holy fuck, are you serious?
Yes.
Hey, can you bring the cat
Clinton.
closer?
Jesus,
I'd
that's
like
why
to
you're not
see it.
expanding your business more. You're spending all your fucking money feeding that cat.
Wait,
Oh my
25
Yeah.
pounds?
25 pounds. Yeah, okay.
You sure it's not a dog? Fuck me.
All right, now that he's gone, let's talk about how much we love Apple products.
They are superior to fucking. I mean, come on. It's like not even
Some of
question.
the smartest computer techs I've ever met in my entire life have been in Genius bars.
Same.
I'm just kidding.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah, are you really? I went to a Genius bar one time. I will never go back in my entire life. I almost killed myself walking out of there.
Yeah, that's. Listen.
Okay, where's the cat? Where's he at? Holy Jesus. Wait, let's see that belly. Lift him up more.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess he doesn't look as bad up close. That 25 pounds, though, pretty big for a cat, though.
That's what they say. Chonk, oh lord, he coming.
Okay, well, hey, cool. We really appreciate you being on. People know where to find you on YouTube. I'm sure everything will be linked in the description. And I mean, you're Louis Rossmann on YouTube. I think it's
Yeah.
2 S's
And
and
if you
two
have a
N's.
broken computer, send it to him. But before you send it to him, try to fix it yourself and break it more so he can charge you more money.
There you go.
Well, yeah, it was really good talking to you both. Thank you very much for taking the time and having me on.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us.
All right.
Cheers.
All right.
All right.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
My cat just knocked the trackball out of my mouse.
Nice job.
Okay. All right.
All right. See you guys later. Peace out.
See you.